It was a beautiful Sunday afternoon in Oregon's Willamette National Forest. The air was thick with the scent of pine, and everything seemed perfectly normal. 4-year-old Ethan was playing within sight of his mother and father, just 20 feet from the small, clear creek that ran behind their campsite. 20 feet. That's practically arm's reach. Yet his mother, Sarah, turned her back for no more than 60 seconds to grab a water bottle. When she turned back, the boy was simply gone. Vanished into thin air. The distance was far too small for him to get away that fast. Now, this creek was tiny. You could skip a rock across it. It was ankle deep, maybe knee deep at the most, and it flowed gently into a small lake about 200 yards away. They screamed his name. They frantically searched the site, but there were no footprints. No sign of a struggle. Nothing. As is so common in these inexplicable cases, an unnerving silence fell over the woods, where moments before there had been birdsong and laughter. It was like the forest held its breath. Then, the weather changed. Suddenly, a violent, unexpected thunderstorm rolled in from the west, blanketing the whole area. That storm hit just 4 hours after Ethan disappeared, washing away any faint tracks an untrained eye might have missed. It's a key profile point that we see again and again. 3 days later, after a massive search operation, Ethan was found. He was not on the creek bank. He was not stuck in the brush. He was pulled from the dead center of the small lake. His small body, cold and lifeless, found floating 200 yards from where he vanished. How did a 4-year-old child travel that distance, that fast, and enter deep water without any witnesses or clear tracks leading there? This is what we call an impossible entry mystery. I'm David Paulides, and you're listening to the Missing 411 podcast. For years, my team and I have been documenting these terrifying vanishings in the wild. These are not simple drowning accidents. These are cases that defy the rules of logic and search and rescue protocols. The victim vanishes from an easily observable area. Bad weather almost immediately follows the disappearance. And crucially, the K9S, the most reliable asset we have, cannot track them to the water. The scent simply cuts out. The authorities, particularly the National Park Service, won't tell you there's a pattern here. They actively refuse to compile a national database of the missing, but my research proves there is a terrifying profile connecting these baffling disappearances. And the water cases are the most frustrating of all. Let's look at a case from Banff National Park, Canada. In the 1,980 seconds, I'm calling him Ryan, a very experienced 8-year-old hiker. He was with his fiancée, taking a break on a flat. Open rock outcropping overlooking a glacial stream known as the Mistaya River. She saw him walk 30 feet away to take a photo. And when she looked up again just 90 seconds later, he was gone. Search teams assumed he fell into the fast-moving, freezing water. But there were no footprints at the edge. No sign of a slip or a struggle on the bank. When the K9S were brought in, they followed a scent for maybe 40 feet along the bank. And then the scent cut out cold, as if Ryan had been lifted straight up into the air. Nothing for 9 days. Then, approximately 7 miles downstream, near a place called Saskatchewan Crossing, a fisherman found his backpack. Ryan's body was found 3 days later, another 2 miles further downstream, almost 10 miles from where he vanished. How did a large, healthy man travel 10 miles through a fast? Boulder-strewn river without being found immediately, or without being severely mutilated. It just doesn't make sense. The pattern isn't limited to North America. We see clusters everywhere. Let's head to the remote outback of Australia. New South Wales, 1,999. Mr. Wallace was a 74-year-old cattle farmer. He left his farmhouse one morning to check on a fence line just 300 yards away. His son found his utility vehicle parked at the boundary, the engine still running. But Mr. Wallace was gone. The initial search was complicated by another profile point, a sudden, unexpected, blinding dust storm that seemed to rise out of nowhere to hinder the search. This property had an old, abandoned, covered by a heavy wooden lid sealed with equipment. It hadn't been used in 50 years. The K9 units worked the area for 3 days. They even walked right past the well multiple times. The dogs showed absolutely no interest. On the 4th day, the son went back to the well. The heavy wooden lid was slightly ajar. He pulled it off and peered inside. There, at the bottom, floating in the water, was the body of his father. How did Mr. Wallace, a man who needed a tractor to move that heavy lid, open it, move it aside, and then fall in? This defies all physics and all logic. The K9S who track human scent did not alert on a man who was sitting, essentially, in a 20-foot tall scent column. It is an impossible placement. The question we must face is, what force is powerful enough and intelligent enough to accomplish this? The Park Service won't answer that question. It's not a physical perpetrator. If the victim was carried by a person or a massive animal, the K9S would track that movement to the water's edge. But the scent stops. It vanishes. I have documented cases where campers report an unnerving, low humming noise from the woods moments before a disappearance. What if the mechanism for taking the victim is entirely non-physical? What if we are dealing with invisible entities? These entities may be capable of suspending the laws of physics around their target, causing the scent to dissipate, allowing them to lift the victim over the ground. They bypass the K9S entirely and then place the body into the water in a controlled manner. Think about the farmer in the sealed well. He was placed in a sealed hole. That is not an accident. That is a deliberate, terrifying act of placement. The only thing I can state with certainty is that a physical agency cannot execute the precise logistics we see in the missing 411 water cases. If you are ever in the wilderness and you hear that unnatural, deafening silence settle over the trees, if the weather suddenly turns against all forecasts, if the hair on the back of your neck tells you you're being watched by something you cannot see, remember the water. Remember the impossibly placed bodies. And get out of there. I'm David Paulides. Be safe out there. We'll be back with another case next week.